So let me scroll down a little bit, and I'm gonna create a private method. So I'm gonna do private get traces, and it's not gonna accept any parameters. Oops. And it's gonna return void. Let's open and close curly braces. What I want to do here is to call the service and then make the call to the backend by calling get HTTP traces. So to use the service, we need to inject the service in this class, and obviously you can see we don't have that dashboard service injected. So we need to create a constructor and then inject it as a private field in the constructor so that we can have access to it. So here I'm gonna do constructor, and then here I'm gonna do private dashboard service, and it's gonna be of type dashboard service, which is our service. Okay, so make sure this is imported. I'm gonna come here, quick fix, import. Okay, so now we have access. Oops, I have a typo here. So we have access to the dashboard service, so now we can use it. And nope, this is supposed to be open and close curly braces. So let's use the service. So I'm gonna copy this name and then go down here, reach out to the service, and then call get HTTP traces. So now we need to subscribe to it so that we can be notified. And we're not only gonna be notified, we're also gonna get the response that we get back from the call to the server. So we have to do that, subscribe, which I talked about before. And then here we're gonna expect, or three things can happen. The first thing that can happen is the successful response. So we're gonna see whenever we get a response, which is gonna be of type any. Remember, we didn't specify a type here, so it's gonna be of any. So we specified that as well. What we want to do is we want to take a look at them. So let's do console log and look at the response. And then I want to create another method that I'm going to create later. And this method, what it's going to do is to process those traces. Remember, we have to segregate them. We have 200, 400, and 404, 500 in the default. So we need to have a method that can do that for us. We can actually do it here, but it's going to be a little bit too much to do all of this in this method. So I'm going to create another method that's just going to take the traces and then process them. So let's do this, that process traces, and here I'm just gonna pass the response for now. Okay, so we're passing the response. So this method doesn't exist, or this function doesn't exist, so I'm just gonna do a quick fix and then declare it. Okay, so we're gonna declare it down below as well, and it's also gonna be a private method. So for now it's not doing anything, so I'm just gonna remove this so that we don't get an error, and then it's returning void. And the void also, we don't have to specify it. TypeScript is smart enough to infer the actual return type if we have a return. So for instance, if I have return 10, okay, so TypeScript is gonna complain because I'm saying it's returning void. But if I say number, then it's not gonna complain anymore because it understands that this is supposed to return a number. But if I leave this out, TypeScript also understands that this is supposed to return a number. Okay, you can see when I hover over it, it knows that this is returning a number. Okay, so just wanted to let you know that you don't have to specify the return type on method. So I'm just gonna leave this blank for now, remove this return. Actually, I'm just gonna delete it because I'm not gonna need it at all. So for now, we can take a look at those you know, the response that we got when we try to access all the traces and see what we get. So the way we're going to do this is to call this method whenever this component is initialized. Okay, and then we have a lifecycle hook that we can use in Angular that can do that. It's called ninit or ng-on-init, and for this we need to implement an interface. So we're going to do implement, and it's called on-init. So we're going to do on-init, so like so. Make sure it's imported. It's supposed to come from core. So since the component and on-init are coming from the same place, we can just add them on the same line and then remove one of those. We don't need both of them. I don't know why this ID is not smart enough to do that, by the way. So now this component is complaining because we haven't implemented the ng on init. So let's see if we can do that. So now we have ng on init here. And the only thing I need to do here is to just call this method right here. So I'm just going to copy this method name and then remove this throw that I don't need, and then just call this method. Okay, so what's gonna happen is whenever this component is initializing, when it's initializing after it's done, then it's gonna call this method. Okay, and this method is gonna just console log the response to us. So let's see if we can save this and go back to the browser and let this reload. So let's take a look at the console and go to console. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. You can see we have this coming from line 33. So just so you guys know, you see line 33, and this is the log. So let's see what we have. So here we have this big, oops, it's empty. Okay, so we have an object, which is the response. So let me refresh this so you can see. Okay, so we have the response, which is a JSON data, and it's got one attribute on it, which is traces, and it's an array, and it's got one object in it right now. Okay, so we have one request, which is this. As you can see here, we have the request and the response, and that's why they're called trace and not request or response. Okay, because it contains both the request and the response along with some additional metadata. Okay, so there's a principal and there's the request. You can see the method, the URL, etc. So you see we access the HTTP trace, and then the response with a status of 200 and some headers information. Okay, so you can see origin, everything. So now we know that we're getting just traces. It's only a matter of showing them on this table right here. So we know that we have to access the traces to access the array. Okay, that's the name attributed with the array. So that means that I can actually print the traces. So from the response, I can just access traces. Okay, so save that and let this reload. Go back. It's reloading. See, now we only have the array. Okay, and you can see now we have 2 because I just refreshed it and he made another call to the same endpoint, which is the HTTP trace, as you can see right here. Okay, so now we know we're good. So we're going to continue in the next video.